It's a cold, damp evening in West Orange, New Jersey. It's the late 1880s. A young boy stands in the muddy street outside a massive brick laboratory. He's shivering. In his hand is a piece of rough twine. At the end of the twine is a stray dog, ribs showing, tail tucked between its legs. The heavy wooden door to the laboratory groans open. A man steps out into the dim gaslight. He doesn't smile. He reaches into his heavy wool coat, pulls out a silver quarter, and drops it into the boy's dirty hand. A whole 25 cents. The boy hands over the rope and runs off into the dark. He doesn't ask what happens to the dogs. No one does. Inside the cavernous room, the air smells sharp. It smells like ozone, hot copper, and sweat. At the center of the room is a large sheet of metal. Wires snake across the floor like black veins. They connect to a massive, terrifying machine in the corner. This is the laboratory of Thomas Alva Edison, the Wizard of Menlo Park, the greatest inventor in American history. But tonight, Edison isn't inventing. He's going to war. A man named Harold P. Brown steps forward. He's Edison's operative, a hired gun in a tailored suit. Brown leads the terrified, shaking dog onto the metal sheet. He straps a damp sponge and a copper wire to the animal's leg. Another wire is strapped to its head. A group of reporters stand in the shadows, their notebooks ready. They're watching, waiting. Thomas Edison wants these reporters to see this. He needs them to see this. He needs them to write about it in the morning papers. He nods to Harold P. Brown. Brown grabs a heavy iron lever on the wall. The dog drops dead instantly. No sound, just the violent snap of electricity. The reporters gasp. Some cover their mouths. Edison steps forward into the blue light. He points to the dead animal. He points to the generator in the corner. He tells the reporters that this is alternating current, AC power. He tells them it is the technology being sold by his rival, George Westinghouse. He tells them it is a terrifying, deadly force that will kill their wives and children in their homes. Edison is lying. He knows AC power can be safe, but he doesn't care. Think about that for a second. The greatest hero of American innovation is secretly paying street urchins to steal pets off the street. Then he electrocutes them in the dark to run a corporate smear campaign. And why is he doing this? It's because Thomas Edison is terrified. He's sitting on a dying empire, and he will do anything to protect his money. Business is war. Welcome to Corporate Wars. Act 1. The Patent Troll. History books don't always tell you the truth about history. They paint pictures of heroes who never existed. If you grew up in America, you learned about Thomas Edison. You learned about the lone genius, the man who worked late into the night, mixing chemicals, wiring bulbs, inventing the modern world all by himself. Edison wanted you to believe that. He spent millions of dollars to make sure you believed that. But Edison was not a lone genius. He was a ruthless corporate boss. His laboratory at Menlo Park was not Willy Wonka's electric workshop. It was an industrial factory for patents. Edison hired hundreds of brilliant, desperate engineers. He put them in rooms, gave them tools, and worked them to the bone. When one of those engineers invented something incredible, Edison took the paper, crossed out the engineer's name, and signed in his own. He owned the patents. He would own the ideas. And he would own the men. But even Edison had a boss. Behind the curtain of Edison's empire was Wall Street, specifically a man named J.P. Morgan, the most powerful banker in the world. Morgan poured massive amounts of money into Edison's company. Morgan wanted a monopoly on the future of light. And Edison delivered. He built a system called direct current, DC power. But there was a massive, fatal flaw with direct current. It lost power over long distances. This means that if you're living in New York City in the 1880s and Edison wants to light your house, well, to do that using DC power, he has to build a massive, cold-burning power station less than 1 mile from your front door. If you live 1.5 miles away, the electricity just fades out. Your light bulb won't even glow. Not only that, but DC power required massive, thick copper cables. The streets of New York were soon choked with hundreds of heavy, black wires. They blocked out the sun. In the winter, under the weight of snow, these thick copper lines would snap. They fell into the streets, electrocuting horses right in the middle of Broadway. The DC system was bloated. It was expensive. And it was a logistical nightmare. But Edison was deeply and stubbornly invested. He and J.P. Morgan had spent millions building these local power stations. Edison owned the patents for the copper wire, the meters, and the bulbs. If anyone threatened that system, Edison did not try to invent something better. He called his lawyers. He sued his competitors into bankruptcy. He buried them in court costs until they folded. He was a corporate shark swimming in a very small, very profitable pond. But Edison also had a blind spot. He was so focused on crushing businessmen in New York, he didn't notice the storm brewing across the ocean. A storm that was coming straight for him. Act 2. The Dreamer from Smiljan. July 10th, 1856. Midnight. In a tiny village called Smiljan, in what is now modern-day Croatia, a storm is raging. It's one of the worst electrical storms the region has ever seen. Lightning strikes the ground, shaking the small houses. Inside one of those houses, a woman is giving birth. The midwife is terrified. She looks at the flashing sky. She wipes the sweat from the mother's forehead and whispers, "The lightning is a bad omen. This child will be a child of darkness." The mother shakes her head. She looks down at her newborn baby boy. "No," she says, "he will be a child of light." That boy is Nikola Tesla. Tesla is not a businessman. He's not a shark. He is a pure, unadulterated visionary. And his mind is unlike any mind in human history. From a very young age, Tesla realizes his brain works differently. He has an eidetic memory, a photographic memory on steroids. He can read a book once and recite every single word on every single page. But it comes at a terrible price. Tesla suffers from intense OCD. He's terrified of dirt. He cannot stand the sight of pearls. He has to calculate the cubic volume of his food before he takes a bite, or he physically cannot eat it at all. And then, there are the visions. Tesla suffers from blinding flashes of light in his eyes. In the center of these flashes, he sees machines. He does not need a blueprint. He does not need a workshop. Tesla can build a complex motor entirely inside his own head. He can turn it on in his mind. He can let it run for 3 weeks, check it again in his mind, and see exactly which gears have worn down from friction. This is a superpower, and also a curse. As a young man, Tesla becomes obsessed with electricity. He looks at the clunky, sparking, inefficient motors of his time, and he knows there is a better way. The visions show him a different kind of power, a power that flows in waves, alternating back and forth like the tides of the ocean. Alternating current, AC. He knows AC power can travel hundreds of miles without losing strength. He knows it can light the entire world. He tries to tell his professors in Europe. They laugh at him. They tell him it defies the laws of physics. They tell him he's crazy. Tesla realizes that Europe is the past. If he wants to build the future, he has to go to the only place where the future is being built. He has to go to America. Tesla sells everything he has. He buys a ticket on a massive, crowded steamship crossing the Atlantic. The journey is a nightmare. There's a mutiny on the ship. Tesla is nearly thrown overboard. His luggage is stolen. Everything he owns is gone. When Nikola Tesla finally steps off the boat and onto the dirty, crowded streets of New York City in 1884, he has exactly 4 cents in his pocket. 4 pennies. He has a small book of poetry, and he also has a single piece of paper. It is a letter of recommendation from one of his old bosses in Europe. The letter is addressed to only one man, Thomas Alva Edison. Tesla looks at the letter. He looks at the smoke-filled sky of New York City. He believes he is finally about to meet a man who will understand his genius. He has no idea he's walking straight into the jaws of a monster. Act 3. The $50,000 Insult. Thomas Edison sits behind his massive wooden desk. His office is a mess. It's covered in grease, blueprints, and cigar ash. Edison himself looks like a mechanic. His hands are filthy. His hair is wild. The door opens. Nikola Tesla walks in. The contrast is jarring. Tesla is incredibly tall, over 6'2". He's painfully thin. He wears a spotless, tailored suit, even though he has no money. He speaks with a thick, refined European accent. His manners are perfect. Tesla hands Edison the letter of recommendation. Edison opens it. The letter says, "My dear Edison, I know 2 great men, and you are one of them. The other is this young man." Edison looks up. He squints at the tall, strange immigrant. He tells Tesla to speak. This is the moment. Tesla's entire life is built to this. He begins to talk about his vision. He pitches his AC motor. He explains how it works. He explains how alternating current can travel for hundreds of miles, pushing power across the country, making Edison's clunky 1-mile DC power stations completely obsolete. Edison stares at him. His eyes go cold. To Tesla, this is a conversation about science, about progress, about powering the world. But to Edison, this is a conversation about money. Edison hears this young man pitching a technology that will completely destroy the millions of dollars J.P. Morgan just invested in copper wires and DC generators. Edison cuts Tesla off. He calls AC power a deadly waste of time. He tells Tesla that his ideas are dangerous and useless. Tesla is crushed. The rejection hits him like a physical blow. But Edison is a shark. He sees that Tesla is brilliant, even if he hates the boy's ideas. And Edison has a massive problem. His DC generators on the ships in New York Harbor keep breaking down. They're a mechanical nightmare, and none of Edison's engineers can figure out how to fix them. Edison leans across the desk. He makes Tesla an offer. "There's $50,000 in it for you, if you can do it." $50,000 in 1884. That's an absolute fortune. It's over $1 million today. For a man with 4 copper cents in his pocket, it's a king's ransom. It's enough money for Tesla to build his own lab and invent his own AC motor. Tesla agrees. For the next 6 months, Tesla doesn't sleep. He works 18 hours a day, 7 days a week. He practically lives in Edison's dirty machine shops. He uses his brilliant, obsessive mind to tear apart Edison's crude DC generators and redesign them from scratch. He adds new controls. He balances the magnets. He makes Edison's entire empire run smoother, faster, and cheaper. He saves Edison's company a massive amount of money. Finally, the work is done. The machines are perfect. Tesla walks back into Edison's office. He's exhausted, covered in grease, but he's smiling. He has earned his freedom. He looks at Thomas Edison and asks for the $50,000. Edison looks at him. A slow, cruel smile spreads across his face. Edison leans back in his chair. He shakes his head. "Tesla," Edison says, his voice dripping with condescension, "you don't understand our American humor." It was a joke. There was no money, and there was never going to be any money. Edison used the naive immigrant as free labor to fix his broken empire, and then laughed in his face. He offers Tesla a tiny raise of $10 a week instead. Tesla doesn't yell. He doesn't scream. He's a man of honor and refinement. He just turns around, walks out of the office, and quits. But quitting means he has nothing. No lab, no money, no friends. To survive the brutal New York winters, the greatest scientific mind of a generation is forced to dig ditches in the streets. The man who can see the future of electricity is breaking his back in the mud, stringing up the very copper wires for Thomas Edison's company just to buy a loaf of bread. He loses years of his life to depression. He thinks his dream is dead. But rumors of the brilliant, strange immigrant start to spread. Rumors of a man who claims he can build an entirely new electrical grid. Those rumors eventually reach the ears of a wealthy businessman in Pittsburgh, a man who hates Thomas Edison just as much as Tesla does, a man who has the money, the factories, and the ruthless ambition to burn Edison's empire to the ground. His name is George Westinghouse, and he's about to hand Nikola Tesla the key to the future. Act 4. Westinghouse, the macabre PR war. George Westinghouse is a builder. He made his fortune inventing air brakes for trains. He understands massive, complex systems. And, unlike Thomas Edison, Westinghouse isn't threatened by Nikola Tesla. He's amazed by him. Westinghouse buys Tesla patents for alternating current. He gives Tesla a laboratory. He gives him money. And, most importantly, he gives him a royalty contract, $2.50 for every horsepower of AC electricity sold. If AC power takes over the world, Nikola Tesla will become the richest man on the planet, and AC power starts moving fast. Westinghouse begins building power stations. Because AC can travel for miles without losing strength, he doesn't need to put a coal plant on every street corner. He can build one massive plant outside the city and light up entire neighborhoods. It's cheaper, it's cleaner, it's just vastly superior. But back in New York, Thomas Edison is watching his empire crumble. J.P. Morgan is breathing down his neck. The millions of dollars they poured into the thick, heavy copper wires of the DC system are becoming worthless. Edison realizes a terrifying truth. He cannot beat Westinghouse on the technology. Tesla's design is just too good. So, Edison decides to beat them with fear. Edison launches the dirtiest corporate public relations war in American history. He needs the public to believe that alternating current is a deadly, uncontrollable monster that will kill them in their sleep. He hires a man named Harold P. Brown. Brown acts as an independent expert, but he's secretly funded and directed by Thomas Edison. As we saw in the open, Brown travels from town to town. He buys stray dogs from local children for 25 cents. He buys calves. He buys horses. And he drags these terrified animals onto stages in front of reporters. And then he electrocutes them using a Westinghouse AC generator. He fries them alive to prove that Westinghouse's power is the power of death. But dead dogs are not enough to stop the spread of AC. Edison needs something bigger. What he needs is the ultimate stage. And he finds it in the United States justice system. In the late 1880s, the state of New York is looking for a more humane way to execute criminals. Hanging is messy and often botched. They want a modern, scientific solution. Thomas Edison has always been publicly opposed to capital punishment, but he sees a golden opportunity. He contacts the state. He tells them that the fastest, most painless way to kill a man is with electricity. But not just any electricity. He insists they must use his rival's technology. They have to use alternating current. New York agrees. They hire Harold P. Brown to design the first electric chair. But there's a problem. George Westinghouse is horrified. He refuses to sell them a generator. He does not want his life's work turned into an instrument of death. So, Edison and Brown use a shell company. They secretly purchase a used Westinghouse AC generator from a university and ship it to Auburn State Prison in New York. On August 6, 1890, a convicted murderer named William Kemmler is strapped into the heavy wooden chair. He's the first human being to be executed with electricity. The warden signals the executioner. The switch is thrown. 1,000 volts of Westinghouse alternating current rip through William Kemmler's body for 17 seconds. He convulses violently. The power is turned off. The doctor steps forward to pronounce him dead, but Kemmler is still breathing. The execution was botched. The generator was not fully charged. Panic breaks out in the room. The reporters are shouting. The warden screams to turn the power back on. The executioner throws the switch again. This time, they double the voltage, 2,000 volts. They leave the current running for over a minute. It is a scene of absolute horror. Blood vessels burst under Kemmler's skin. His hair catches on fire. The smell of burning flesh fills the tiny brick room. Reporters faint and vomit on the floor. George Westinghouse later reads the reports and says, "They would have done better using an axe." It's a nightmare. But Thomas Edison doesn't care about human cost. He only cares about the headlines. He immediately begins a massive PR campaign to spin the gruesome event. He tries to introduce a new word into the American vocabulary. He tells the press that William Kemmler wasn't executed. He was Westinghoused. Edison wants housewives across America to see that word. He wants them to think, if I let Westinghouse wire my home, my family will be Westinghoused. It's pure psychological marketing warfare. But it is a desperate, dying gasp, because the greatest stage in the world is about to open its doors, and Nikola Tesla is about to step into the light. Act 5. The City of Light. The year is 1893, Chicago, Illinois. The United States is preparing to host the world's Columbian Exposition, the World's Fair. It's meant to celebrate the 400th anniversary of Christopher Columbus arriving in the New World. It is a massive, sprawling complex of beautiful, white neoclassical buildings built right on the edge of Lake Michigan. It's a fake city, but it needs real power. The organizers want to illuminate the fair at night. They want to show the world that the age of fire and gas lamps is over, that the age of electricity has arrived. The contract to light the World's Fair is the Holy Grail. Whoever wins this bid will prove that their technology is ripe to power the entire globe. The War of the Currents will end here. Thomas Edison's company, now named Edison General Electric, submits their bid. They want to use their direct current system. But remember, DC is incredibly expensive. They need thick copper wires and multiple massive generators. Edison's bid is astronomical, $1.7 million. That would be $62 million today. George Westinghouse sees his chance. He looks at Tesla's AC system. It uses thinner wires. It's vastly more efficient. Westinghouse submits his counteroffer, $399,000. It's not even close. Westinghouse underbids Edison by over $1 million. He wins the contract. Edison is furious. He's a sore loser, so he plays his final petty card. Edison owns the patent for the glass incandescent light bulb. He refuses to let Westinghouse use his bulbs at the fair. He tells the organizers if Westinghouse wants to light the fair, he has to invent his own light bulb in 6 months. Edison thinks this is his checkmate. But he forgets who he's dealing with. Nikola Tesla does not sleep. He doesn't need years of trial and error. He has the visions. Tesla works at a fever pitch. He completely redesigns the light bulb. Instead of Edison's fragile filament, Tesla creates a stopper bulb that bypasses the patent entirely. Westinghouse puts his factories into overdrive. They manufacture hundreds of thousands of these new bulbs in a matter of months. May 1st, 1893. Opening night. Imagine you're standing in the center of the Grand Basin in Chicago. Over 100,000 people are packed into the courtyard. The sun has set. The massive white buildings disappear into the black sky. There's no electric lighting. Darkness envelops everything. President Grover Cleveland steps up to a podium. He reaches out and presses a single golden telegraph key. Instantly, 100,000 incandescent bulbs burst into brilliant, warm light. The crowd gasps. Grown men fall to their knees. Women weep. Nobody has ever seen anything like it. The buildings glow against the darkness of the water. The fountains sparkle. Nikola Tesla stands in the crowd, watching his dream come to life. He has built the City of Light. And he doesn't stop there. Tesla walks into a large exhibition hall and performs a miracle. He stands on a stage holding a glass tube in his bare hand. He allows high-frequency alternating current to flow through his own body. The glass tube in his hand lights up, completely wireless. He proves to the world right there in the open air that alternating current is not the monster Edison claimed it was. It's beautiful. It's safe. It's the future. The World's Fair destroys Edison's PR campaign in one night. Within months, Westinghouse and Tesla are awarded the ultimate prize. They win the contract to build the first massive hydroelectric power plant at Niagara Falls. They use the raw, terrifying power of the waterfall to spin Tesla's massive AC generators. They send that power 20 miles away to the city of Buffalo. It's a triumph of human engineering. Nikola Tesla has won. He beat Thomas Edison. He proved his genius. But in the world of corporate warfare, the man with the best ideas doesn't always win the war. The man with the most money does. Act 6. The Wall Street Takeover. Thomas Edison lost the World's Fair. He lost Niagara Falls. And he's losing market share every single day. But Edison isn't the one holding the purse strings. J.P. Morgan is. J.P. Morgan is a shark among sharks. He's a Wall Street kingmaker, and Morgan doesn't care about Thomas Edison's pride. Morgan cares about return on investment. He takes a look at the balance sheets. He sees that direct current is a dead end. Edison was wrong, Tesla was right, and Morgan realizes that if he doesn't pivot immediately, Westinghouse is going to run them completely out of business. So, Morgan did what bankers do. He stopped playing fair, and he bought up the board. Without telling Edison, Morgan begins orchestrating a massive, hostile corporate merger. He reaches out to a rival company called Thomson Houston. They manufacture alternating current equipment. Morgan uses his immense wealth and leverage to force a merger between Edison General Electric and Thomson Houston. He's going to adopt AC power whether Edison likes it or not. On April 15, 1892, Thomas Edison was called into a boardroom in New York City. He walked in expecting to give out orders. He is the Wizard of Menlo Park, after all. It's his company. His name is on the building. But when he sits down at the heavy mahogany table, J.P. Morgan and the board of directors look at him with cold, dead eyes. They tell Edison that the merger is complete. They tell him that his stubbornness and his costly PR wars have hurt the bottom line. They tell him that he lost the bid for the World Fair in Chicago, that he lost to Westinghouse. They tell him he is no longer in control. Edison is stunned. He built this empire from the ground up. He protests. He argues. But the ink is already dry. Morgan has the shares. Morgan has the power. Thomas Alva Edison, the ruthless patent troll who stole ideas, sued competitors, and electrocuted animals just to maintain control, is brutally ousted from his own company. He's completely sidelined. And then J.P. Morgan delivers the final, lethal blow to Edison's ego. Morgan wants to distance the new company from Edison's toxic direct current brand. He orders the painters to go outside and scrape the word Edison off the front door. Edison General Electric ceases to exist. It becomes simply General Electric, GE. Edison leaves the building. He is a wealthy man, but he's a defeated one. The empire he built was taken from him by a man with a bigger checkbook. But what about the victors? What about George Westinghouse and Nikola Tesla? The epilogue. Westinghouse did win the War of the Currents, but the war nearly destroyed him. The massive cost of the World's Fair, the Niagara Falls Project, and years of endless legal battles with J.P. Morgan left the Westinghouse Corporation drowning in debt. Bankers cornered George Westinghouse. They tell him they'll not loan him another dime unless he fixes his balance sheet. And they point to one specific item: Nikola Tesla's royalty contract. Now remember, Tesla was promised $2.50 for every horsepower of AC electricity sold. AC is now powering America. Tesla is technically owed millions. He's on track to becoming the world's first billionaire. Westinghouse travels to New York. He meets with Tesla. Westinghouse looks like a broken man. He looks at the brilliant immigrant and says, "My enemies have me against the wall. If you insist on your royalties, I'll lose my company. They'll take your AC system away from me." Nikola Tesla was never a businessman. He never cared about money. He cares about his inventions. He cares that alternating current is lighting up the world. And he's loyal to the one man who believed in him while he was digging ditches in the mud. Tesla takes the royalty contract, the piece of paper that guarantees him unimaginable wealth, and he rips it up. He gives up his fortune to save his friend. Fast forward 50 years. It's January 1943, room 3327 of the New Yorker Hotel. Nikola Tesla is 86 years old. He's completely alone. He's living off a meager pension. His OCD has consumed him. He spends his final days walking to the park, feeding the pigeons, and talking to them as if they're his only friends. The man who invented the 20th century, the man who harnessed the power of waterfalls and lit up the world, dies in that hotel room, penniless and forgotten. Meanwhile, General Electric and Westinghouse go on to become massive, multi-billion-dollar corporate titans. That's the thing about the current wars. We look back at the 1893 Chicago World's Fair as the ultimate battleground, the exact moment Nikola Tesla and George Westinghouse publicly defeated Thomas Edison by lighting up the night sky. That's the popular version. But if you look at the actual timeline, there's a pretty big time shift anomaly. By the time those million AC light bulbs flipped on in Chicago, Edison had already lost. A year earlier, in 1892, his primary VC backer, J.P. Morgan, realized that Edison's stubborn loyalty to direct current was bleeding the firm's capital. Morgan didn't wait for the World's Fair to decide the winner. He executed a ruthless, internal hostile takeover. He orchestrated a massive merger behind Edison's back, stripped the founder's name off the door, and created General Electric. The World's Fair wasn't a battle. It was a victory lap for Westinghouse. The incumbent founder was already sitting in exile, ousted from his own monopoly to punish him for losing J.P. Morgan's money. When corporate titans fight, the real war is usually decided in the boardroom long before the public ever sees the product. But what happens when a boardroom dispute can't be solved with a merger? What happens when a corporation decides the only way to protect its monopoly is to overthrow a sovereign government? No, it's not bananas this time. Join us for a special 3-part series where we break down the 1953 Iranian coup d'etat, how the Anglo-Iranian Oil Company, the precursor to British Petroleum, outsourced a hostile takeover to the CIA, and new actor MI6, creating geopolitical shockwaves that permanently fractured the Middle East and ripple through time to this exact day. But just so not everything is doom and gloom, we're also going to shift gears and dive into the ultimate battle for shelf space and mind share with the Cola Wars. I'm your host, Thomas Kremzel. This has been Corporate Wars. We'll see you in the trenches.